Hello and welcome to Salam Radio. This is Faiza Rahman, Managing Director of Raham Project, mother of 2 young children with Lisa Marie South.
Hi there, Faiza. Nice to be here with you today. I'm also a midwife and a mother of 2 children, and I'm so proud to work on Raham Project with you.
I know, it's very exciting. So Lisa, let's talk a little bit about Raham Project. Do you want to go first?
I would love to. So I came to Raham Project to join you because obviously Raham Project is a grassroots organisation that you so proudly lead, and you have a real passion to change the face of maternity services, not just in Peterborough but across the UK.
I completely agree. So Lisa, why did you become part of Raham Project?
I joined Raham Project because I share the same passion as you. I can see the clear differences in maternity care, in the work that I do every day. I can see how women from Black and Asian communities are unfairly treated. They have poorer outcomes for birth as well. Mm-hmm. And this drive to make a change and make a difference and to be together with women whilst doing that is what attracted me to Raham Project.
Thank you, Lisa, for all of that. So Lisa and myself actually met a couple of years ago when we were working as practicing midwives. And I have been qualified since 2011. And I started working in Northampton, and that's where I learnt about the importance of providing care that is centred to the needs of families. And I really learnt to listen to people. And birth is very powerful, or having a child is very powerful, isn't it, Lisa? Mm. And so from that, what I learnt is that we need to take time in understanding the unique needs of our communities. And I guess that's why Raham Project started. So it was my experience as a midwife. I was practicing for several years, and I started to notice that the way care was being provided to women from Black and brown communities was different to how women from Caucasian communities were experiencing care. So initially I started off thinking, I'm going to just try to listen to our communities and see what they are experiencing. And a couple of years later, I'm now running a grassroots organisation supporting these communities, running peer support groups where women from Black and brown communities can come and talk to us, can share their experiences. Sometimes they come to moan just about their husbands. And it's a really safe space for them to do these kind of things. But what we do as mothers and as midwives is we feed back these stories to our local maternity and neonatal systems so that there's a true reflection of what the experiences are. Because at the moment, we've got lots of data saying care experiences are not as good for women from Black and brown communities. We know that the Embrace report showed that Black women are 4 times more likely to die from childbirth-related problems, and brown women are nearly 2 times more likely to die from childbirth-related problems. But those real quality stories are not there. It's very easy to probably say it was this many number of people that died. But the women who are probably still surviving and then living with that trauma is not something that's accounted for in the same kind of way. What do you think about that, Lisa?
Yes, I can see that the data is there, and I think about the maternity services, they have recognised the data is there, and there's been lots of reports, and now it's about taking action and making that change. And I was really interested, Faiza, you said about how you feed stories back. How do the women feel about you feeding stories back, and are they ever worried about their experiences being shared and their names being known?
That's a really good question. So I guess we work in a way where we are always transparent with the people that we are connecting with. So for some of our communities, what they want is they just want to talk to somebody who understands how their experience went. They may not want us to actually do something with that story. So for some people, it's just listening and them knowing and having that validation that this is what happened to me and I really need to talk to somebody about it. And I need to talk to somebody about it who understands how this stuff works. For other people, once they get the confidence, they might turn around and say, actually, I don't mind feeding that back to the system. Now, for some mums, they'll say, oh, could you help me do that? Whereas other mums might say, I feel like I'm ready to talk to the system and I'm ready to tell them what happened. And I guess with anything, your customers are the biggest reflection of how good or bad your service is. So I would say that the more mothers that are willing to share their experiences, the better.
And I'm sure it's not just negative experiences. Do you hear positive experiences as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of mums who we speak to who will talk about how good their care experience was. So one of the things I was taught when I was doing my training was a mother will never forget how she was treated during her birth. And if you talk to mothers, a lot of people think that in labour and birth that they're out of it and they're not really aware. But actually it's quite the opposite. Although birth is really intense, what you tend to find is mothers, even during birth, even during the intensity of birth, will remember the most smallest details. Like, for example, I remember the smell of the perfume that somebody was wearing. Or I remember when they flicked the switch and I just remember the noise. And so I always think in my head, it's really important to remember that mothers never forget how they experience birth. And some of the positive stories are of the love that they experience, those initial moments with their baby, how they felt very bonded with their partners. And that's a really important thing to talk about. Birth partners, they're very important in our lives. And they happen to be either our husbands or a close female relative. But there's a real bonding process that happens when you're giving birth. This is stuff that mothers often talk about in our communities. And I think particularly when it's your first baby, or if you have a positive birth with any number of your births, what you find is mothers remember that and they'll never forget. What's your experience about mothers' feelings around birth and when they have a positive birth, how they hold on to it? If they have a negative birth, how they hold on to it?
I think that birth is transformative. It changes your life, doesn't it? And that can be your first birth. A lot of people don't expect the change that will happen. Even if you prepare for that, you can't fully prepare until it's happened. And then each time you have a baby and each experience you have through pregnancy, even through baby loss as well, those experiences, you live with them forever. And whether that's positive, whether that's negative, some people experience birth trauma as well. And it's really important that we listen and hear those experiences, and people have the opportunity to share what they're feeling in a safe space. That may be in a group of people, it may just be chatting to their mother, it may be coming to speak to somebody who has some experience and can guide them through a complaints procedure. It could just be chatting in a baby group, for example, can be enough for you to feel that your experience has been heard. But the way I view it is that women will have one birth experience and that will map out what they want to do for their next and subsequent birth experiences, and it will change that course for them. And some women are really trying to kind of understand what their rights are as well, because they want a better experience the next time round, which is absolutely how it should be. And I know Faiza Rahman Project is doing a lot of work with some local organisations to actually help mothers kind of develop that process and that their birth rights, think about their birth plans. So can you tell me a little bit more about the work that Rahman Project is doing at the moment?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, so some of the things that we're doing at the moment locally have come about because mothers have told us, we need these kind of spaces. Faiza, Lisa, can you help us? So one of the things that we've started doing that is run by this most amazing doula called Shabana that works with us. And she works alongside some of our volunteers like Zainab and Fozia, and there's others, Sobia, who have all come together to make this happen for our local mums. So they offer a walk and talk that happens once a month. We also do a lunch club, which is run at one of the children's centre. This is so that you can come and socialise, have food. Food is also a very important part of socialising. It's something that we've recognised in our communities. And it's relatively inexpensive, and you can bring your children to these children's centres and essentially chat and meet other mums whilst your children play. And then other things that we're doing are online virtual coffee and chais that you can attend. And I'd say the fourth thing is a really big project that we've been working on for the last 2 years, which is known as MAMA. Lisa, tell us what MAMA stands for, because the acronym is too much for my dyslexia.
So MAMA stands for Mothers United for Maternity and Mental Health Action, and it's a specific project that's supporting Black, Asian and mixed ethnicity families through pregnancy and beyond.
Absolutely. And this started as a tangible action to the mums that, we've been honoured to speak to, the ones who said, this didn't go well in our care, this is what we needed. We needed more support, we needed more education, we needed to be able to speak to people who looked more like us, who understood our culture, who could listen to us, who could signpost us and handhold us throughout the pregnancy journey, so we didn't feel so isolated and overwhelmed during the whole transition. And it's been 2 years in the making, and very recently we launched it, which is extremely exciting for us. It's been 2 years in the making, and our part of the project was, as Raham Project, to create culturally sensitive birth preparation classes, which we have done. And we are currently recruiting mums who are pregnant. So the criteria is if you are Black, brown or mixed ethnicity woman, and you are pregnant, and if you have had a baby in the last 2 years, you could come via the Mama Hub for support. But the part that we really want to promote is the antenatal education classes, because we're a bit biased and we love that part of it, and we're very excited to deliver it. And each group is going to have about 6 to 8 mums. You can bring a birth partner. It does not have to be your husband or your partner. It could be your mother, your sister, your friend, anyone who you feel is important to you and is going to support you during that time.
Faiza, what if you don't want to bring anybody with you?
Good question. So you don't actually have to bring anyone if you don't want to bring anyone. And I think probably the first cohort of mums so far, they've all said that they're not going to be bringing anyone. I guess it depends on timings and whether it works for having people there with you, but you'll meet other mothers. So throughout it, you might start making friendships, which is really important when you have a baby. You need other people like you, who you can talk to, especially in the postpartum period, who you can connect with and, talk to about how the experience is. So hopefully that's something that you'll get out of there, apart from the education, which is crucial, I believe.
And what will you learn about on the courses?
So the sessions will be divided, the cohorts will be divided over 4 separate sessions. The part that I'm mainly going to be delivering is going to be part 1 and 2. And part 1 is talking about your body, how your body works in labour, your hormones, what labour is like, how to cope with labour. And part 2 is looking at the what ifs. What if things start to change in my labour? What might intervention look like? What might happen if I am offered an induction or an instrumental birth or a caesarean section? What my birth rights are, what my choices are. Do I have to do what I'm being told? And what can I do if I've got an alternative, health issue going on? We can link you to our local midwives and they can support you through that, so that it doesn't feel like you're doing it alone, and that there's a plan in place so that you feel safe with what's happening and you're in control of what's happening. Then session 3 and 4, I'm going to let you talk about, Lisa.
So session 3 is talking about the end of pregnancy, because by this time you're going to be 35, 36 weeks, maybe a little bit either side of that. And it's thinking about the conditions that you're experiencing currently, because things change towards the end of pregnancy. Everybody's unique. Every pregnancy is different. And it's a great safe space to talk about what's affecting you and what you would like to know about. And then we would move on to planning your birth, really. So thinking about what you would like to happen during your labour and birth, after your baby is born, who's going to be with you. And there's some really good support to do that. And there's some women who want to make choices, as we talked about earlier. You think about how your first birth was, and you might want to make some choices for your second, third babies that don't necessarily sit within what the hospital is telling you that you should do. So we have some real specialist support from some very experienced midwives that will be able to help you plan for a safe birth, but to have the choices that you want as well. So that's in the third session. And then in the last session, now this is a really great interactive session. It's all about, well, my baby's here now, what do I do? How do I change a nappy? How do I bath my baby? Now, some experienced parents are probably going to be able to lead part of this session and share their experiences, but things change from baby to baby based on evidence. So it's a really fun session. You'll also learn about recovering after you've had a baby, which is so important, isn't it? When you've had a baby and when you've given birth, it's hard work. Labour is not called labour for no reason. And even if you have a planned caesarean section, your body has been through an operation as well. There's a lot that we have to think about for recovering after our baby's born. And what about our support networks? Who's going to be there to support you? And this is the kind of the premise of the antenatal program. So the baby and birth classes that we'll be delivering, it's getting you to think about everything that in the last bit of your pregnancy journey to when your baby's born, thinking about the people that are around you and the choices that you can make.
Oh, Lisa, that's fantastic. So that's a local offer for mothers from the Peterborough area,
yes,
who are from the Black, Brown, mixed ethnicity community, and they can access this. And how can they access it?
So they can register their interest through Raham Project website. You can have a look on there, and there will be a link to register your interest for the classes. They can email mama@barnardos.org.uk, and also on the Raham Project social media, you will find lots of links to register your interest as well. And then you'll be contacted by one of the peer connectors who will talk to you about what you would like to do, whether you would like to do antenatal classes, whether there's other support that you need through your pregnancy and once your baby's born.
And I think it's important to just say for people who are listening that this project is not just it's not created and doesn't belong just to Raham Project. It's actually a partnership project that was created by Barnardos, by CPSL Mind and Raham Project. And so it's three pretty amazing voluntary sector organisations that have come together to try and support our healthcare system, which we know at the moment is struggling with resources. So that's partially why we created this solution, because we know that the healthcare sector needs a little bit of support right now as well. So it's a whole system that we're trying to tackle. And inshallah, I think we're going to make a really big difference for our local families.
We need families to come and make use of the services that we're offering. That's really key, because this is something that's been identified by families local to Peterborough, that this is what they want and what they need. It's not just something that has been magicked up and a service that has been delivered upon you. So we need you to engage with this service and show that it's needed, and we will make it work. We're committed to making it work and for it to be a long-term project.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to probably come back to us to being midwives. I think it's really important that the people that we're talking to get to know us. We really want to talk more about midwifery, let people know why it's important that we have more midwives in the system. And I want to ask a bit about your journey. So why did you become a midwife, Lisa?
So I became a midwife after my first child. So I had a relatively straightforward pregnancy and birth, and my postnatal experience was awful, and my breastfeeding journey was challenging. And I had one midwife, a community midwife, who I remember very well. Her name was Shelley, and she was amazing, and she just sat beside me. I felt she was really with me when I was on my breastfeeding journey. And before becoming a midwife, I'd always worked as an advocate for people. And I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to support women who are going through this journey and make a difference for them. So that led me to training to be a midwife when my baby was less than 2 years old. And that was hard. It was really tough, but it taught me so much about me as a woman, and as a midwife, I sort of grew and developed this real passion to sit alongside women and families. How about you, Faiza? What was your journey into midwifery? What made you want to become a midwife?
So I think midwives, all midwives have a few qualities that are very similar. I think we're all usually empaths by nature. I think we all are secretly quite rebellious. And like we have this activist streak in us. We want to change the world. We want to make things better for people. And I guess for me, it was, I grew up in a big South Asian family. I'm one of 7 siblings, 6 sisters, 1 brother, mum and dad. And I was always drawn towards women who were having children, breastfeeding, and that whole like perinatal period. I was always really in awe of it. And I don't know if you know this, Lisa, but South Asian communities tend to have quite large families. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of exposure to being around children. And I always kind of was aware that there wasn't very many South Asian midwives out there, probably subconsciously. And actually, that's still the case now if you look at the data. But my mum was probably really key in me becoming a midwife. And I vividly remember my mum talking about her birth with her first child, who is my brother. And she often spoke about her experience and how she gave birth to him at home, which when you read the data, the vast majority of the world still gives birth at home. Giving birth in hospital is a very Western practice. So my mum gave birth to my brother when she was very young, in our village, at home, supported by her mother-in-law, her mother, her aunts, sisters. And whenever she told me this story, I was always really acutely aware. It's so amazing that birth is something that's celebrated. It's a joyous time. It's a time for women and people in their communities to come together and support someone going through that transition. And then my mum used to talk about her birth stories when she gave birth in the UK. And although she was more isolated because she didn't have that family support network and she couldn't speak English, so she didn't understand the language, she spoke a lot about how she was treated in all of her births. And that was something that really resonated with me, that I want to one day be able to help those mums, say if they don't speak English and they need someone who they can identify with and they can link to, or that they feel comfortable with, and support them through their birth. So I guess my mum's birth stories, I just found them so intriguing, and it made me think, I want to be a midwife. I kind of did not want to be a nurse because I didn't want to deal with death. But inherently through being a midwife, you realise that although life is what you expect to see, there are times sometimes when you do see death, but less frequently in the West, I'd say. Yeah, so those are my reasons. I'm glad I done it. And I would encourage other people to do it, people who have that drive and that passion. I'd love to see more women from diverse communities wanting to do midwifery. And I wonder if there's someone listening who might be interested in doing it. What would you say the reasons are that they should become a midwife, Lisa?
I think to have this real desire to work alongside people and to affect change, exactly as you said, those qualities of being an empath, a bit of an activist as well. I think I can see that certainly locally. I don't know about other areas. I've worked in a different area as well, and I've found that there's been a more diverse group of midwives. But locally, we need to see midwives that are representative of everybody in our local area.
I think Lisa has stopped on a really good point, and I'm just wondering, we've got about 20 seconds left to an advert, and I really want to pick up this point straight after about why other people should become midwives, because there's lots of reasons for why I think lots of people would want to become midwives. There's a shortage within the UK, and we want to fill that gap. But what we'll do is we're going to pause in a second. You've got a break coming up, and we'll talk about it when you come back.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers.